We are recording, Don, so what's going on?
Okay, we hopefully will have a lot more people coming in tonight. So I ask everybody to try to hold your questions and stuff to about 3 minutes, and that way everybody can get a chance to ask their question on that. If you are getting an interest right now in selling bees or to try to make a living at it, there is a drop down on my web page where it says Don's Keepers. Those people are basically like a franchise. So they're basically an authorized dealer that can sell the bees under my name. So if you're buying bees from people and they're saying that they got my bees, check to see if they actually got my bees, because we had a few people trying to sell saying they was my bees, and I actually caught it because I could tell by the packages. We're taking orders, and for nukes, we're taking orders for our bees, our queens, our packages. So if you need bees early, get on that list. Stephen is making a list of the ones he's working. I'm getting my list made up too, because Stephen's running a bunch of bees for himself too. And tonight, let's find out what's going on in them hives. We're coming into winter. You should have been treating oxalic acid or some type of treatment in your bees. You should be checking for mites. You should be checking for honey stores. And on Facebook, I see a lot of people already are saying their brood box is full of honey. You can have a box full of honey and actually not go through the winter. So what I would get down in there, and if you got too many frames of sealed honey, I would pull one of them out and at least put a frame in there and move the other ones from the outside to the inside and get that extra frame in there. Warm days, they'll start to draw it out. And if you've looked at my page, we have one of our contributors, Jason, is giving a free queen away, and they are really good artificially inseminated queens. All you have to do is get on my Fat Bee Man group, register and say the word queen, and from what I understand, he's given a queen away. So I hope I'll be that lucky person, but I'm not that lucky. But get your name on there, don't cost you nothing, and get some good stock, and you should be able to start selling bees. Who's got the first good question they want to put up here?
Well, it looks like we got Joe from Connecticut. I can't unmute you. You got to do it yourself. There you go. Go ahead, Joe.
Hello, Don. How you doing?
Okay, evening.
Good evening. Thank you for taking the time. I appreciate everything you do. So I have 2 deep frames, 8 framers. Top feeder on there right now. I just completed my first round of oxalic acid. Definitely treated later than I should have. But I had a heavy mite count. I could see deformed wing virus, some little ladies walking around. Right now, the bottom box it has, a good amount of pollen, not many stores, not much liquid, if you will. But the top deep brood is rocking and rolling. The queen is slowing down, but I did still notice that there is a mite, there's some mite damage there. Can I still hit them again with another round of oxalic acid?
Well, if you're in Connecticut, as long as the temperature is up above 55, between 55, 58, 59, in that range,
yes.
As long as you're blowing it in the front with either the Provap, the wand, be careful, because if you got wax hanging down in those frames or your spacing's out, you don't want to get a fire going there.
Yeah.
But I would hit them at least before the new year. I would hit them at least 3 to 4 times. Get them mites cleared out.
Get them cleared out. Okay. Should I be concerned that the bottom is, it's weird. It's almost as they didn't occupy. They're not doing anything with the frames on the bottom box. The top is rocking and rolling. They're filling it up as I'm feeding them. However, the bottom is sort of vacant, if you will. There's bees down there though, but it is vacant,
I believe in a warm day, you got 55, 58. If you're fairly fast, I would start taking some of those frames of brood and stick them in the bottom. If you're lucky enough to grab the frame, it's got the queen, you're lucky. But as long as you don't have that queen excluder on there, and if you do, that should be out of there.
No excluder.
Good, good.
No. Okay. All right. I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Burns.
Mr. Burns.
Go ahead.
Formalized
Don.
tonight. Hey.
We're ramping up and getting ready for the spring, and I guess want to make the first announcement here that starting November 1st, we'll have packages and nukes available for pre-sale. We're working, of course, with you and Steven again, and we'll be delivering Fat Bee Man bees all the way from Georgia back up to Ohio and Pennsylvania. Wanted to make a special offer for Fat Bee Man members. If you go to our website, naturesimagefarm.com, starting November 1st for the whole month, enter discount code FBM. You get 10% off package or nukes. So that'll be just for the month of November, just for the Fat Bee Man members. And we're looking forward to another bee run, getting Don's bees all across from Georgia up through Ohio, Pennsylvania, Kentucky, Tennessee. And then we'll have overwintered nukes available here in Ohio and overwintered Fat Bee Man genetic queens available as well. So thanks again, Don, for all your help getting started and getting going.
Good deal.
Could you give any word to anybody who's just on that borderline that they can't decide they want to start selling bees or getting into the bee business, how hard it is or what the success rate is?
I mean, it's one of those things, like a lot of things in life, you just got to put yourself out there to do it. And making the bees is not the hard part. Learning from Don, he makes it easy. It makes it possible for you to succeed. Even in the first year doing it, the biggest three, and you've heard Don say it, is the three folks that are going to run you out of business is wouldn't, couldn't, and can't. Once you step out of that side, have some confidence in yourself, follow through, and actually do the work. I mean, you like Don, you've heard it over and over again. You just can't keep up. You can make bees. You can do it. Folks buy it. Folks support Don. They support Gentle Bees, and they support local folks trying to do well. And provide those locally adapted bees, those queens. You can do it. If I can do it, you can do it. I'm married. I have 7 kids. I have a full-time job. I'm self-employed. We run a farm, and we have this bee yard. Sometimes things get out of hand, and you can't put all the fires out, but that's just what happens. If I can do it, I'm telling you, anybody can do it. What Don says, if you listen to 10% of what he's telling you, you're going to succeed. Year 1, just this first spring, doing the bee run, selling nukes and queens, we were already in the black profiting before we even got those bees back to Ohio. So from there on, the rest of the year was all profit. So you can do it. You got to set your mind to it, put your hands to the work, and you can make it happen.
Greg, is the secret having 7 kids as slave labor, or?
Hey, there's definitely something to be said for the old time ways, and having that good, reliable workforce, that works for dinner. It helps out a lot. I'm not going to lie. That's why my boxers are so pretty and purple and handprints, and they got the kids love painting, but it's nice having them, but they're excited to do it. They want to help. They get rewarded. So they're learning to be little entrepreneurs from the age of 3 up. So everybody wins.
That's great. All right, over to Ernest. Go ahead, Ernest. Nope, hang on, you're still mute. I can't unmute people for some reason tonight. Got it. There you go.
Okay, good evening, everyone. A question my son asked, he using that hop guard, and he finds out it kills a lot of the bees. I just wondered if other people has the same problem with that.
Well, it's not one thing that I have recommended or suggest. If I don't believe in a product, I'm not going to mention it. And I can keep saying it over and over. The best and the cheapest way is the OA. I mean, if you don't want to do it, then do something else. But, there's a lot of products out there that are sold for mite, control. But if you can't work your bees, then it's not going to do you much good.
Yeah, he found out that the hive population went way down. It killed the mites, but it sure took a lot of bees with it.
There's 4 or 5 treatments out there that I wouldn't recommend. I mean, I'm not going to say that, they're bad. They sell them. You have to use what you believe in. And you never hear me mention, but just a couple things. If you're doing the natural, You can use the fogger with mineral oil. If you need a little extra kill, you can add wintergreen to it. Your next step up from there is go with the OA. You know, if you don't want to fool with your hive, you drop some Apivar in it. A lot of times it's time versus what you can do. If you start running numbers of hives, then you get busy. Pretty soon the time slips away, but you have to treat the hives one way or the other.
Well, I think his biggest problem, he didn't treat during the summer, and now he's treating, and he said he got thousands of mites off of them. But now he's got stick bees trying to raise bees. So
right. Yeah. Once they get to a point, then it's a losing battle.
Yeah, that's all I have right now.
Ernest, I'm not too sure what the science or research is behind the hop guard, but I have heard of mites developing resistance to that one. So you might want to step it up and just do the OA then. Okay, over to George. Go ahead, George.
Good afternoon. How's everybody going? Definitely, they will grow, and you have to build boxes, and you can't ever build enough. And Greg, I'm with you. I got a 12-year-old little girl that's painting boxes and feeding bees. So I got child labor too.
George, the internet must be slow.
Yeah, something's up.
Yeah. If people are even debating about selling bees, there's no, you don't have to buy bees from me. You can buy bees from anybody. And then you go out there and you can start putting ads out and start to sell these bees. But if you're one of my students and you get into the group there, you already have all the advertising done for me. You'll never produce enough bees. So there's one advantage to think about. You could jump in it, go out and buy a bunch of bees, throw some ads on different sites and see if you can sell them. But if you talk, this is the best place to get in. You can talk live to my students, ask them, even after the after chat, you can ask them questions, they'll tell you. They're not going to make enough bees that can keep ahead. They sell fast. People want these bees. So I try to keep my genetics up to where you can work bees and they live and they're gentle to work and they're good producers.
Got no other questions on the line.
Don't be bashful. If you don't ask, you don't learn.
Get them hands up if you have a question, people. If you can't figure out where the raise hand thing is, just start doing this and I'll find you eventually. All right, Joe again. Go ahead, Joe.
Now, what's your thoughts on mixing pollen into a 2-to-1 mix or a 1-to-1 into your syrup in general?
I don't do it personally. I mean, there's people that will put it in separately. I don't know how your beetle situation is up there, but we have found in the last 4 or 5 years, by not using an additive of pollen, you don't have the beetle problem. So,
okay, interesting. Yeah.
If you watch the front of the hive, they're bringing pollen in. Then there should be work. They do all right.
Okay, all right. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Okay. Greg, did you have a question? Comment?
Yeah, Don, a lot of folks are just about ready to button up their hives and get them put away for the winter time. Outside of keeping their bees healthy, doing the mite treatments, if they monitor, checking for mites to see if they do need to do any last treatments, checking up on honey stores. What other recommendations would you have for folks to give them the best shot of going through the winter and coming out with bees?
Well, there's a lot of things going on the Facebook and on the page. There's a lot of things there that I'm not fond of. Quilt boxes, I'm not a big fan of. And in the people's own words, they say they collect the moisture. Well, in the wintertime, especially like in Ohio, if you got something soaking wet above the bees, all you are is radiating moist air down. So it's not a big thing that I'm a fan of. And people are posting so much stuff out there, and people that's not experienced are trying this stuff, they're going to lose bees. I find that putting plenty of ventilation holes in all your boxes seems to do the best. I'm not a big fan of mouse guards. I believe just reduce the entrance down. If your hive is strong enough, they'll keep the mice out. And storing bees, storing your supers and stuff, I'm not a fan of that. There's some people that put them on crystals, or they crisscross them and hope for the best. If you crisscross them and store them in a storage building, if you get mice and they get in there and they pee in the box, you're going to have a hard problem keeping bees in there. And they also chew the wax down. And so that's another reason we went and cut all of our comb out. We pull our honey, we cut the comb out in the fall. Springtime, all brand new wax. And it's working good for us, and we got good results with it.
Okay, over to Ernest again. Go ahead, Ernest.
Yeah, I'm trying something new this year. I have my migratory covers, and also using your idea, Don, for making that little cone to go over the queen cells. Well, I made it bigger, and I'm using a 90-degree elbow, plastic elbow, and I'm boring 1.5-inch holes, same as my migratory cover, and taking an 1.25-inch elbow and just actually fit in that hole perfect. And then I'm taking the I don't know where you've seen that stuff at Lowe's that you put down in your gutter to keep the leaves out. By cutting a section of that out and putting in the 45, and then I use your idea of that screen, and I put that screen over it so nothing would pull that out, accidentally in wintertime. So I put that down the hive, and I put 2 screws in it from the inside, and the air don't go in it. I blowed through it. In other words, the air won't affect them as far as giving them too much air, but it'll let it vent, come up and out.
Yeah.
So that way I still got my hole if I want to feed them, and then I got another hole with this vent in it. So I'm trying that this year, and I think it'll work. That way it'll let the moisture out, and then if you want to feed them during the winter, you can. Matter of fact, I cooked some syrup down to 15% with the what do you call that meter? The
moisture meter or refractometer?
Yeah, you read it, and I cook it down to 15%. So really, it's the same as honey.
Yeah.
So if I wanted to, and it wasn't too cold freezing it, I could feed it all winter. So that's something I'm trying this year. I'll let you know how it worked out in the spring. Some of these good ideas you have, you find out why'd I do it.
Well, the main thing is find out if it works, and don't do a lot of them until you find out if it's going to work or not. That's the main thing.
Right.
Okay. And Greg, unmute. There you go.
Hey, Don, as I've been watching you over the last couple years and taking your lessons to heart, sometimes you just think, well, maybe he's right. Maybe I'll just try this different way anyways and just kind of see what happens. Well, last year I decided that because everyone always talks about how drawn comb is gold and how valuable it is to keep over the wintertime to be able to use first thing in the spring. So I rigged up these nice racks in the workshop, and I had, 300 or 400 frames ready to go. They were all drawn. Cat was able to keep all the bugs, critters off of them. And I put those rascals in the hives in the start of spring to get some packages going, make some splits and some nukes. And I kid you not, every single time they would draw from the lid or from the side or double comb those and actually use them. So it actually seemed to set me back further, going through the aggravation of saving that drawn comb and then putting it in the hives. If I would just cut it out, they were actually drawing foundation faster off of empty frames and lids than they were even working that old comb. Why in the world do you always hear that folks saying how valuable the drawn comb is? I'm not quite seeing that.
Well, I've heard it for years and years, and I have learned it by trial and error. And you can go into any of your hives, pull a frame out of the middle and drop an empty framing with no comb and nothing, no starter strip, and go back in about 3 days, you'll find a queen there. That's where they go. They want that new comb. So the bees are basically telling us something if we're willing to listen. But now I go with all new comb when I put packages in. If you have comb that's got honey in it, it's a different story. I'll put the comb with the honey to the outside, and they'll uncap it and they'll use it.
Yeah, I'm just not seeing an advantage to keeping last year's foundation over the winter to get a jump start in the spring. I think I'm just going to do do what Don says, cut it out, melt it down, use it for everything else, and then start with starter strips or fresh sheets and in the spring.
So even just a year old, you're seeing that they're not working it as quick?
Yeah.
Wow.
I've tried everything, and I found over the time everything I've done is either cost me money or set me back. So over the years, I found that put new comb in there puts you ahead a lot farther, faster.
Yep.
So
I'm just going to cut them all out this year and save up that space and do something else with that wax.
You got two options. If you're going to store, 1 or 2 hives is different, but when you got 100 hives,
Right.
Where are you going to store that much? And you're always going to have a rodent problem. And if they get in there, then you got less wax or damaged wax.
And damaged frames and Yep.
So it's a toss-up of what you feel works for you.
Yep.
But there's people out there that they swear by it.
Yeah.
I haven't seen the advantage personally, and I'm going to make
Okay.
money what I do. I'm not going to take them and start losing money.
Right.
If it was a big advantage to it, I would save all the new wax, but I'm putting all new wax in constantly.
Right. Okay. Very good. Thanks.
Okay.
Over to Raina. Go ahead, Raina.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Speak up just a little bit more.
Okay. Hey, Don. Hey, everybody.
Hey.
This is my first call. Just wanted to say thank you for all the information that you have put on the web, and it's very useful. I've been watching your videos for the last couple of years, and it's very helpful. Just wanted to ask a quick question. So I'm in Houston area. I bought 2 of your 2-pound or 3 of your 2-pound packages from Kelly this March, and I run all 8-frame mediums, and just using your information and techniques, I've been able to split, and right now I'm at 20 hives. I had to stop because I don't have any boxes anymore. So what you say is true, but just trying to, I was thinking of like starting to sideline and maybe for next year start building some 5-frame nukes for selling. And I was thinking maybe I'll go like 30 to 40 boxes.
If you got 20 nukes or 20 boxes of bees right now, then you need 60 to 80 boxes. That's what you have to get.
I understand.
Now, if you're going to sell, do you have a bad back?
I don't.
Okay. Is there a reason that you're using mediums?
I guess I just started using, I was reading stuff online, and when I started, that's what I started with, and I kind of stuck to that. And I realized, mostly the market is probably 90 or 95% people use deeps. So
well, not necessarily. I mean, there's people that, you're going to get the same amount of money for a nuke that's medium that you will with deep. But, there's a lot of students come here with a preconceived idea. Don't cut half your sales or 60% of your sales off because you run all mediums.
Right.
There's going to be commercial people, and you're in a good area there where if you got my bees, you're going to see that they're so gentle to work, they'll beat your door down for them. And there's such a shortage, and we can't produce but so much. Right. And Julie can tell you that Stephen cannot keep up with orders going out to Houston. From the west of the Mississippi, we're getting tons of orders in right now, and we can only do but so much. I mean, that's why we're trying to get more franchisees out there that will sell our bees.
Right, and that's something that I was thinking about. Maybe, sometime in the near future, I'll probably, come by and, look into your, I guess, commercial classes, you call them, or a commercial class, and see, if how that works out. So you think, I'll need about 60 boxes?
Well, there's about 5 of my students in here, and I tell them all the same thing. They can give you their opinion, but bees do 2 things. They multiply and they store honey. And if you got 20, the natural thing is they're going to make a minimum split. So
Right.
You're looking at 40 boxes right there.
Right.
So,
right.
You got to split. A lot of people don't understand. You got to split them bees, or they're going to split on your cells.
Right. I made 3 splits a couple of weeks ago, and they're all full, and I have to switch them to I have 4 frame nukes also. So from 4, I have to switch them to 8 now. There's so many bees in the boxes. So. If
you don't think you can market them, in Texas, a 5 frame nuke deep should go for $225 to $275. A medium is same price. You have problems selling them, get with Julie, and probably she could sell them faster than you can sell them. There's people that's on a waiting list for our stuff, and that's not exaggerating.
All right. Well, thank you very much again. I'll let other people ask the questions.
Over to Linda Webster. Go ahead, Linda.
Hi. I took the rest of my supers off of my frames this week, but I had a question about what do you do with frames that still have some uncapped honey in them?
Well, if you take the frame and when you're pulling the frames out, or if you're getting ready to extract them, turn them sideways and give them a light shake.
Mm-hmm.
If there's nothing that drips out or shakes out, then I would go ahead and extract them.
Okay, what if it does?
If it does, then I would set them aside.
Okay.
You got wired foundation, or are you on plastic?
It's wired.
If you're on wired and you're careful, you can take, just uncap the stuff that's capped and let it drain down or scrape the wax off. The stuff that's uncapped, if it looks too watery, then let it scrape it off and put it in a separate container. We've done that in the past.
Okay.
Sometimes in the fall, you get a stretch there where they just won't cap it and it's got too much moisture. You give it a shake and it comes out. We put that in a bucket by itself and we'll mark it, and then we'll feed it back early spring.
Okay. What I did, I had several of them, so I actually put them in a super and put a bottom board on it and a lid and put them off to the side and used it like a community feeder. Was that a mistake?
I personally wouldn't do that this time of the year because you'd end up causing a bunch of robbing. Okay. If anything, I would go into your hives and pull a frame out that is blank or they're not using it and just replace it with one that's partially capped and partially open.
Okay. Okay. I will do that next time. It's too late now. I already pulled all of them.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Julie, go ahead.
Hey, I was going to answer Raina a couple questions. Raina, Dawn's coming in April to our place at Winding Creek in Willis in April, and then also to Old Security Farm, same in April. And so come visit him whenever he comes. Get your hands in the hive with him. And then also, if you're looking for equipment, come and visit me. Come visit us. So.
All right. Will do. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And over to George. Go ahead, George.
Can y'all hear me now?
Yeah, sounds better now.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Yeah, man, if you can build the boxes, you can definitely sell the bees. That's a fact. They sell themselves. And I had to cut it off. I'm getting more now than I can sell. So, like you say, you put Don's name on them, and people just, that's crazy. So don't be scared to step it up and build boxes, man. You won't regret
George is a student, about 6 months experience, and he's already outselling people that's been in it 3 and 4 years.
like you say, and I didn't even really advertise much. I just put a little ad on Facebook Marketplace, man, and it just went crazy. I don't even have a website yet.
So for somebody that says they can't sell them, get on Marketplace. You have to fight Facebook over it, but it can be done. I did it. All right.
Okay, over to Keith. Go ahead, Keith.
Hey Don, the question I had is if you're going into winter and you've got a box on top that doesn't have hardly any honey in it, you better off just pull the whole box
I would.
rather than leave them, 2/3 or 3/4 of a box. It's
You can always feed honey back, but if you
Yeah.
got too many boxes, you got too much spacing there, and it's going to take more honey to maintain heat in there.
just throw it in the freezer, and then give
Well-
it back to thaw and give it back to them later if they need
You're
it.
not going to have absolute cold weather. I mean, you're going to have warm days. Go back there and lift the back of the hive up. It feels like it's getting light. A warm day, swap a frame out, put honey in it.
So it's better off to get that mostly empty box out of there for them not to have to heat it.
That's my opinion. That's what I found works good for me. We try to run mostly singles through the winter. They do a lot better than putting a double on or even a triple. I mean, I hear people saying, well, they got 3 boxes of honey and then go back a week later and the bees have swarmed or they're full of small hive beetles.
I've got one 5-frame nuke that's 3 mediums, and they didn't do much with the top one. So I was thinking about pulling it.
Yeah, they'll do a lot better if you condense them a little bit.
Okay, that's the only question I had. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody else has their hands up again. Patricia, you had your hand up earlier. Did you still have a question or comment?
Well, I was going to ask the same thing that somebody else did. Don, what are you doing right now to get your bees ready for winter? You probably don't get ready quite as early as the rest of us might. When do you start getting your bees ready, and do you do anything special?
I really don't do nothing special. I've been going through, or I have students been going through my boxes. Right now, we're pulling frames that's got too much drone or too much stretch comb, and we're just replacing it with a starter strip. I'm trying to work out all the bad, unusable comb right now. So that's another thing that most people don't do this time of the year. Look at your comb. If you got 2 inches from the top bar down and it's all stretched, there's only one thing they're going to put there. They're going to put honey or they'll put drones in there. So if you don't have workers early spring, you're not going to build your workforce up fast enough. So that's what I do. And then if you got bad frames in there, that's the time to start changing stuff, getting them ready. Do your mite count or look. I haven't done any mite counts. We were looking at bees and I pointed out a couple frames to students where I said, there's mite problems. When they said, well, how do you know without doing a mite count? I said, look at the pattern. It looks like a shotgun. And the bees or the queen is supposed to lay in a circle, so it'll go out. You will have a few holes that's not filled, but if you got a lot of them that's missing, then you have a mite problem. So you need to do the treatments.
So you don't do candy boards or anything like that for winter?
The only thing we ever have done is 2 years ago, it was a stronger, colder winter. We drop maybe a cup, maybe 2 cups at the most in the back of the hive, dry sugar.
To get them through?
We have put some with paper towels on there and just make a mound. And you have to take your hand and kind of spread it around, because if you're not watching, if you pile sugar on top of the frame, sometimes your lid don't fit down good. So you have to make sure that the lid fits. But dropping it in the back seems to work the best. And it's quicker. We have to go through a lot of hives in a short period of time.
Right. Okay.
All right, over to Linda again. Go ahead, Linda. Can you unmute it, Linda? There you go. Yep.
Okay. Regarding going down to the single deeps, I have double deeps right now, and I was in them the other day after I pulled my supers off, and there are so many bees in there. How do you condense it down to a single deep? Because I feel like I'd be losing half of my bees.
Well, where are you at?
In Missouri, central Missouri.
Okay, I'll tell you what we start doing. Now, you don't have to do what we do. We start in September. If we had one that's a double deep, we'll make 4 or 5 splits out of it. And we make 5 frame splits. That way, if you got more boxes there, if you lose half of them, you're still way ahead.
Mm-hmm.
That's just my thinking. I play the numbers. I found that putting them in a single, they do a lot better overwintering. But right now, if you're in a double deep, the only thing you can do is sit on it and keep an eye on it.
Okay. Okay, that's what I thought, because there's just so many bees in each one. I thought, how in the heck do I get down to 1 deep?
Yeah. But
Okay.
what I would do next year is September, either get you some queens, make some splits, or if you got queen cells, make the splits then, or get them in a single. You know?
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and Greg.
Hey Don, I was, the more hives we run and the more money I don't want to say waste on foundation, but the more money we invest in foundation, I'm always reminded of your wax setup that you have down there in the basement. At what point do you think it makes sense to transition over to start pressing out your own sheets versus maybe just dipping out non-embossed starters and sheets?
Well, at the non-embossed sheets, we had done it at one time. It does work. George's done a lot of that there. The only problem you have is you're at the will of the bees. And if you're not on small cell or you're trying to make a conversion, they're going to make large cells, or they could make crazy comb. Now, right now, I would say people that start with 25 hives, it's not the greatest investment. If you're at 100 or over, wax mill is a great investment, because you not only control the wax as being clean, no chemical in it, but when you get on these chats and you tell people, I'll take your wax and I'll make it in a foundation. We try to get 2 people and we charge them $35 each, and then we get half the wax. So it basically goes back to, if you had a tree on your property and you cut the tree down, your only option is cut firewood. But if you had a sawmill, you cut lumber, then you got the slabs for firewood. So you can make the money back on wax mill. Now, we had 2 ladies bought one about 3 to 4 years ago, and I got talking to them. They come up, took classes on how to do it, and I asked them how many hives they had. They didn't have any hives. They was buying foundation, rolling it up on a 45-degree angle, putting a wick in it, and selling hand-rolled candles, $12.50. They said they paid for their wax mill in less than 90 days, just on the savings alone. So there is bee clubs out there. You go to a bee club, you can do a presentation. They will actually pay you to do that presentation. Then you have all them members that need wax rolled. And it's best to know you got your own wax back. You're not buying somebody else's wax that have a high rate of contamination of pesticides or stuff put in that hive that you don't want in yours.
And those are on, yours are 4.9. You have small cell for yours too?
Right.
Yeah, that's what we run, is all small cell. I'm thinking about doing that. I figure it's probably going to cost about what, $1,400 or $1,500 to get started.
It's $2,000 for a set of rollers, and I train you on them. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Now you can buy some rollers. I think Man Lake, there's 3 or 4 other companies that sell them. There is no instructions come with them. I've had people come here and those rollers are whacked out. There's adjustments on the rollers. It's called a timing gear. It sets the top cell over the bottom cell. And then there's adjustments on there to where it makes one side of the wax thinner than the other. It's like the timing on your car. If you don't know what you're doing, don't play with it. I charge by time to set those things back up. And I've set up quite a few rollers, and you can't do them quick. It's usually a 2 to 4 hour setup on those there to get them right.
Yeah.
That's
well,
why when I sell a set of rollers, you run the rollers that you're going to buy. When you get done at the end of the day, you're making good sheets. You're not going to call me up and say, hey, these rollers just ain't working.
It's hard to get waxed anymore and get it shipped, and especially when you do have more than just a couple hives. You know, when you are buying it in bulk in those big boxes, I couldn't tell you how many sheets I had that were cracked, not worth a darn. You end up melting them down anyways. So that gets to be a little bit frustrating anyways, you know. So
Well, you can regulate how you want to make your wax too.
Yeah.
There's adjustments on there that you can make them thinner or thicker.
Okay, thanks, Don.
Okay.
Okay, over to Patricia. Go ahead, Pat.
Yeah, Greg, I think you need to invest in the wax mill. I think you could do your kids like they did, you know, learn painting the fence. Only special people can do it, you know, and you got to have special, you did something, you did all your chores or whatever, earn that privilege to make that wax. I think you could pay for that wax mill pretty quickly and put some kids to work too.
I might just do that.
How old is your oldest?
17, all the way down to the twins, and they're 4.
Yep, put them to work.
Nice little assembly line.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
We try not to sell a lot of sheets to the public. If I have students that come here, we'll sell them a small percentage of what they run that day. But, you know, when I do sell it, it's $2 a sheet. 2 students that know what they're doing on there can run 1,200 sheets a day. So that machine will make $2,400 a day if you run it. And if you don't have wax, I have wax down here. I'll sell you, I got several grades of wax. I don't sell my premium stuff. I'll sell wax that you can make foundation out of.
And over to Eric. Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, Don, I got a couple questions. We are looking at moving one of our bee yards to a different location. What's the lowest temperature that you would recommend of moving hives?
Well, that's depending on a lot of different things. If it's all new foundation, I would be careful moving them. But if they're at least a year old, you've got several consecutive sets of cycles in there of brood hatching. You don't have to worry about breaking them, but I would move them at 40 degrees if it was me. I mean, you can move them at any temperature, but you're going to lose some bees.
Okay.
Usually once you get down below 50, you're not having as many bees coming out. So, you know, you're going to lose a few.
I didn't know if moving them too cold, if they would hurt them by breaking their cluster or anything like that.
No, you're not going to break the only way you could break a cluster in the wintertime on bees is drop them off the back of a pickup truck, and they're not going to break apart that much. The older it gets, the tighter they hang together.
Okay. Yeah, because all these frames were put in last March, April, I think it was.
You'd be good to go. If anything, I'd put a screen over them, you know, just to make sure. Because now one thing that I probably haven't mentioned, we staple our bottom boards to the bottom hive body. We don't just set them on top of there. Some people do that. I learned my lesson many years ago. They stick sometimes and sometimes they don't. And when you're not expecting it and you're carrying it to the truck and that bottom board comes off at, say, 70 or 75 degrees outside, then the bees come right up in your face and you just can't get away from them fast enough. So we use what's called a roofing staple. It's 7/8 leg on it, and it's 1 inch wide. And it's far better than the hive staples that the bee supply houses sell you. In fact, I stopped using them about 30 some years ago. They have a bad habit of working out, and if you're walking between hives, they'll catch you on the ankle and they'll rip your ankle open. They're a big 3-inch staple that you drive in with a hammer. But you know, I just like the wide staple, and it's air operated, so we can put 50 boxes, you know, bottoms on in just no time flat.
Okay. The other question I had was I ended up having to make some splits about 4 weeks ago on 2 hives that just left on me. I think one of them swarmed because there was actually quite a few queen cells in there. And the other one, there was quite a few bees in there, but I didn't see the queen or anything like that. There was no brood, no larvae, no eggs, nothing. So I ended up ordering 6 queens and made 6 splits. And I got into them just here recently, about last week, I think it was, because I actually had time to get to them to work them. And I had a few nukes, 5-frame nukes that didn't have hardly any stores in it for the winter. Would you recommend pulling honey frames out of other hives to stick in there to help them, or?
Do you have any honey that you pulled out of your own hives?
I've got it in buckets and stuff, yes.
Okay, well, for an emergency situation, you could take a frame and turn it sideways and get you a honey bear, and you could lit the honey in your house to where it's warm, and then just spray it into the cells, and then set that next to the cluster as an emergency. Now, we do feed honey back to our bees. Don't cut it with water. Feed it back the way you took it out. If you put some water in it, it's going to cause it to ferment and put moisture back in the hive. You don't want to do that.
Would you be able to feed it back to them on a hive top feeder?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's the beauty of those hive top feeders. I mean, Paul is usually in here. Now, Paul did that same idea, feeding honey back and making Ross rounds. You know, I'm in North Georgia. If I want to make orange blossom honey, I can just buy a barrel of honey and feed the bees honey, and I can produce top quality Ross rounds, which is gourmet honey, and buy the honey at $2 a pound and sell it for $25 a pound. So, and then and the same thing, you're building up your nukes on the bottom to sell.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another advantage of taking commercial course. I'm teaching you tricks that I've learned over the years that some people probably never heard of or don't think would work.
Now, on some of these nukes, the newer queen hasn't really laid any. Should I give them a little bit of pollen patty to get them to lay? So they've got.
Where do you live?
I live in Southeast Iowa.
Well, queens are shutting down right now, probably there. Mm-hmm. If you're going to feed some pollen to them, are you buying pre-made patties or are you mixing it yourself?
Pre-made patty.
If you're buying pre-made patties, I would cut them up divide them by 8.
Okay.
So that you have a small piece. You want them to consume it in a day to 2 days.
Okay.
You know, and lay it on top of the frame in the center of the box. But I try to stay away from that. You're in an area where you shouldn't have a lot of hive beetles now.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, and James. There you go.
Oh, so I got a question for you. I live down in Florida currently. I just had my bees inspected by the agriculture.
Okay.
They got a clean bill of health, and so I'm wondering. The gentleman said to wait till probably January and February, maybe do a walk-away split. Is there any chance that I could probably get some more bees before it gets too cool? And
in Florida?
No, in Florida, yeah.
In Florida, you know, I'm not a fan of walk-away splits because we do things commercially. If you're going to make splits in Florida, I would buy queens, or if you're close to Miska down there, he's got queen cells that are ripe, that they'll hatch within 24 hours. If you bought 10 of them or 100, they're all going to hatch out about the same time. I would do that. In Florida, you're going to have enough pollen coming in because North Florida right now is bringing a lot of pollen in.
Yeah, they are. Actually, I started putting pollen out when I first got the bees. And I noticed that the bees themselves was taking it into the hive. And we had a top feeder on there with sugar water and a front feeder with sugar water on it. They were taking it.
Yeah.
Now, they quit taking that pollen, but they're still bringing pollen in.
Right.
So,
if you're putting pollen patties or a pollen substitute out right now, if there's pollen coming in, they're going to get the real stuff. They want that fresh stuff.
Okay. Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Okay, over to Jay. Go ahead, Jay.
Hey, Don, how you doing tonight?
Okay.
I'm late getting in. I just wanted to make a comment. you talked all year about you can make honey on your first year nukes.
Yep.
I've got some students, and you know them, Dina Hunt and Andy.
Yeah.
I went over today to look through theirs, and we pulled out of 2 or out of 3 hives, there's about 6 frames of honey that's got to come out because they're honey bound. So you must have,
They will definitely make honey.
make it in those 2 hives.
Yeah, I think we're losing them. I think we're starting to lose you, Jay. You're breaking up.
I
didn't follow what you said.
Oh, that's all I need. Hey, go ahead and go to the next one.
Okay. All right. Got no more hands up. Got a couple minutes left yet. Back to Greg. Go ahead, Greg.
Hey, Don, when you get towards the end of the year, one of the struggles that we had is selling so many queens, trying to figure out the cycles on those. When we get towards the end of the year and get some of the boxes freshened back up, I end up with a bunch of hives that are, you know, they're pretty lean. They've got real small numbers. They're gonna have a real hard time building up. What do you do? I know it's hard to say because you're in Georgia versus Ohio. You can probably get by with a lot less than the hive there. You know, I'm kind of struggling on what to do with some of these straggler hives. When I go to requeen those, should I just leave them alone, combine those bees, shake them out in the yard, let them find new hives to kind of go into? Because they're either, you know, you get them queen right and they're small, maybe they make it, maybe they don't, or do you just, you know, numbers game, you just try to throw as many on the stands and see what pulls through?
Well, you're in too cold of an area to do that. So, you know, down here, if I'm down to 1 to 2 frames in a 5-frame box and they don't look like they're going to make it through the winter, I just sell the queen out of them and then find you 1 hive as a community hive and just stack all the frames up on it. You're going to have to spray them down a little bit and you're actually combining 8 or 10 of them. Because if you don't do that, you're going to have to melt the stuff down.
See, I should have done that because I've had a lot of folks trying to get late queens.
Right now, you can, at where you're at right now, if you're selling queens for 35, if you're pulling them out of a hive, as long as they're laying and you got a 3 to 6 inch pattern there, I mean, I would sell them for $50. You just tell them that I'm pulling out of a nuke. The nuke ain't going to make it. That's the price. If you want it, fine. If you don't, cage them up, bank them for next year. Put them in a hive.
Descent all the rest of the bees in those boxes, put them into a community hive, add a queen, and your risk is just down to 1 colony, 1 queen, and then you've made money on the queens rather than losing the queen and the bees over 1 or 2. That makes sense. Okay. I'll give that a shot next year. Thanks.
Okay.
Okay. If we don't have any more questions, that would do it for tonight. So last chance to get your questions up, people. TikTok.
Everybody's bashful.
Back to Jay. Go ahead, Jay.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay. I was driving down the road. I was in a bad area, I guess. One thing I want to tell you, Don, I don't know if you know, Andy was diagnosed with cancer about 6 to 8 weeks ago. So if y'all will keep him in his prayers, that'd help.
Sure
Andy
will.
Hunt. But Dina's trooper. She's stepping right up. She's trying to learn everything she can about the bees.
Yeah, she talked about having me coming up there and doing a presentation sometime when I come out there, but she hadn't got back to me. I guess she had a lot on her plate right now.
Yeah, they're traveling to Houston and then back to Oklahoma, going to different doctors, and love to have you out here, but they're going through a lot right now.
Okay. And over to Amir. Go ahead, Amir.
How's everyone this evening?
Okay.
Quick question, Don. I have the same situation as the gentleman who started on the chat. A lot of pollen in the bottom, double deep 8. Queen is in the top. She's laying. She's got honey. I wasn't able to get the queens. I waited late to do the splits. So what would I do with all that pollen? Would I try to integrate it?
Reverse it down, you know.
Okay.
Wait till a warm day and start moving some of the stuff down. The pollen, I wouldn't worry too much about. The brood, I would try to move that down. Pollen can be anywhere up there because they're not going to use much pollen unless the queen's laying a lot.
Okay. All right. I pretty much solved the hive beetle problem with the swifter sheets. I haven't seen any of them, and but this week we dropped into the 40s at night. So I'm just
keep an eye on them.
Right. Okay. All right.
Okay. And then the last question for tonight will be Eric. Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, Don, another question for you. Next year, I thought about doing splits right after I pulled honey supers off, just so that they, don't get as full in the bottom 2 brood boxes. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, it's another way to use the bees if you're not wanting to sell them. Make numbers up. There's some people like to run strong hives to produce honey, but they don't have a market to sell. You can always sell the nukes, if you can't sell bees itself. Pull the honey off, and then I would wait, about a week and a half, and then go in there, because you've got all them bees you're pulling the supers off. They're going to be crowded. So if you go back to the basic, what I try to tell you, or teach is they do 2 things. They multiply and store honey. So if they're crowded, they're going to make queen cells. So cut the cells out. Are you on plastic or are you on wood and wax?
Plastic.
Well, I did a talk on cutting out some of those little cell protectors, or you can buy cell protectors to push in there to make your own. But if you got plastic and you got 10 cells on there, put a cell protector over each cell, and then when one hatches out, take that queen and move her to another box.
Okay.
That's what I would do.
Okay, that'll work. Also, I've kind of heard or done some reading about putting lime underneath your hives to kind of help stop hive beetles. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, you can use DE. I mean, that's going to be a lot better. Lime, I don't think it's going to do not unless it's called hot lime, agricultural hot lime. They used to use it in outhouses, but I wouldn't put it on under my hives.
Okay.
I think it's more of a detriment than anything.
Okay.
Sometimes you have to watch things that people post.
Some
things that people like to post just to hear themselves talk. There's no science behind it.
Yep.
The DE does work, though. I mean, if you can either put it on the bottom board inside the hive, or you can put it on the ground. If you put it on the ground, you're going to have to replenish it, fairly often, because whenever you get a rain, it's going to wash it into the soil more.
Okay. Yep. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Then that'll do it for tonight. If you guys want to stick around for the after chat, you're more than welcome to. But that'll do it for Don's portion for tonight. So thank you, Don.
Okay. Thank you for everybody showing up. Get those questions next week, and we'll try to answer them for you.
All right. We'll see you in 2 weeks, Don.
All right. Thank you. Good night.